being placed, within your own community, and how can that inform your own maybe process of like being able to move forward when it comes to things like mental health. All right. So awesome getting to it. So how then do we navigate? And so instead of we're very careful with like wording, we're very careful with language. So instead of trying to break the stigma, because that's what we hear a lot. We hear a lot of like, how do we break the stigma? How do we break this? I think it's really a different conversation when we add culture into it, because it can feel like when we say we want to break cultural stigmas, it can feel like we are rejecting our cultural values, right? And for some people, we're like Scarlett and I are very sensitive to that. Whenever we have our conversations, our community conversations, we always want to say, like, we're not introducing mental health to our communities as a way to say it's going to replace culture. Because we've definitely had, people that are, I think, in a way, feel threatened that we are introducing something that's going to replace our values as and our identities within our culture, right? So we're always careful in how we even word our conversation. So we never say like, oh, how do we break these cultural stigmas? But we say like, how do we navigate these cultural stigmas when it comes to mental health? And I think being able to understand our cultural beliefs and how those cultural beliefs like shape our own perceptions around mental health, what those stigmas are. And so when you have this, sort of understanding now of how everything just kind of interweaves, now we're able to have an open dialogue or a talanoanga like we're having right now, and like what we will keep having in the next couple of weeks coming. We're able to have this dialogue, and the more that we keep talking about these stigmas, the more we keep talking about these topics pertaining to mental health, the more we are normalizing seeking mental health services for our communities, right? Um, yeah. Scarlett, did you want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
no, just to reemphasize, like, and I love that you always say, like, we're not replacing culture. That's one thing we ever want to
Mm-mm.
do. And so we always want to encourage you to be curious. Let's
Yeah.
add on, because what we always say is like, we're not replacing culture. We just want to add on to it. That's all we want to do.
Yeah.
We want to add
Yeah.
to where this is an every year in and out conversation in all our AA NHPI communities, because
Mm-hmm.
we see the effects of when it's not talked about, or when it's not welcomed, or when it's shunned or shamed, or stigmas continue. And that's the thing with stigmas, they continue because of a lack
Yeah.
of information. And so that's why we are here to hopefully again debunk, derail, and navigate, destigmatize whatever the current stigmas, and whatever stigmas that are going to come forth
Yeah.
regarding mental health.
Yeah. And then also like on top of that, like one of the things that we see a lot, one of the things we see a lot is we get a lot of people that are coming into therapy already diagnosing themselves, right? They're coming in and they're like, I am pretty sure I am whatever. I like have depression. I'm pretty sure I'm bipolar. I am pretty sure I am this. Why? Because they saw a TikTok video, and this TikTok video says, "Oh, if you have this and this and this and this, then you are definitely bipolar." Right? So then this person is like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I have that. I have that. Oh, I must be bipolar." Right? So it is so important that as we try to navigate these cultural stigmas around mental health, that make sure that you are getting the reliable information from reliable sources.
Mhm.
Right? Not just around TikTok, because I know that's where a lot of people are kind of like coming up with their are kind of self-diagnosing is from social media.
Yeah.
So please, like I listed a few of, some reliable sources locally and nationally that you can get some information, reliable information, and get the help that you need as well. Scarlett, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just real quickly on bipolar, just because, and I just want to say that because there's a lot of stigmas and misconception about what it is because
Hmm.
people think if you have two different emotions that you're bipolar, like you're happy and you're angry. That's not
Yeah.
bipolar. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
you're just having two different emotions at the same time. That's all that is
Hmm.
at two different times. So, but yeah, no. Again, please seek reliable information. Come to these types of classes. Ask your
Hmm.
questions. So, and we will answer it to the best of our capability for sure.
Yes. And so again, like we're very careful when it comes to languaging around this. And we when we kind of put these conversations together and we're mindful of like the verbiage that we use. And I think like when we say navigating these cultural stigmas, it really kind of took us back into like, like the Moana movie when they're like, we are voyagers, it just suits us better. It suits our communities better when we say navigate instead of like we want to break this. Just like hearing break is kind of like it feels like you are kind of trying to do away from your cultural beliefs. Because sometimes like even the cultural stigma of like say for example shame, that is tied to your culture because like for example in Samoan culture like you got to keep everything that you do is reflective of on you on your family and not on you, and so that's where the shame is coming from because we are collectivistic in nature. Everything that we do, it's like it's in us already to think not for ourselves but we think about our family. So even just going and getting the help that we need, we're not thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about our family and the shame that we're going to bring our family, right? So it's really kind of like linked to our culture and why we call it cultural stigmas. And so that's why we are careful when we say, well, let's navigate around it because there is reasons why we are thinking the way that we are. So that's why we say like know and understand your culture. Make sure that you're maintaining an awareness of just how your own unique culture is interweaving with these Western concepts of care. And then once you're identifying like what your own cultural stigmas are, like we did earlier, then you're able to like bring those pieces and then we're able to have a conversation about it. We're able to like, kind of have a talanoanga. We're able to like bring like what Scarlett used to say, um, bringing to the forefront like what's usual, but pretty much like bringing those conversations to the forefront that are usually in private, and we're like, okay, let's just keep it hush hush. Let's not go out and talk to somebody outside of the family about it. Let's just keep it within ourselves. But when we bring those issues that we usually talk about in private and we open it up to everybody, we realize that like the more that we keep doing that and we keep having these conversations, the more we are normalizing for our community that this is and this can be an avenue of help for our community and for our people as well. Okay. Anything else on here? Questions, comments, or anybody want to share any experiences?
I just had
Good.
a curiosity came up when you said talked about shame because there's also shame
Oof.
when you think about the community. There's also shame to think that if you think about yourself over the community, there's a lot of shame around that. It's a lot of I have to
Oh
put
yeah.
my family community first because that's what we were taught. And so
Hmm.
it's a very interesting journey when somebody decides to actually seek the help that they would like. Go ahead, Lilia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think one thing is for us, because we are such a collective, community and everything is family, like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I got my own job and I got money and my own insurance that I felt that I had the ability to look for resources, because living at home, I put that first. So it was always, what do we need to do for the house? Where can I help with this
Mm.
money? So it's like I wanted to, when I was at home, there was a different part of the culture that I had to navigate, versus when I was making my own money and I was like, okay, well, now I
Mm.
can start to really see like, where should I put my time? How would I be helpful for my family?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I can start thinking of these larger kind of things versus when you're in the middle of it with your family, sometimes it's hard. And your priorities are different, you know? So I think it's a lot of it is just time sometimes also is just
Right.
finding out what's the best time for you. Like I didn't have time to do my mental health when I was, you know, supporting my younger family or something like that. So there's
Mhm.
so much different things, but I appreciate that you're trying to create from the beginning, you know, like a proactive approach that it's yeah, that you're trying to weave it in versus throw it at folks. So I appreciate this
For
and thank you for
sure.
this.
Thanks, Leah. Keep coming because as we continue, we talk about balance.
Hmm.
How to continue to balance all of this for sure.
Hmm. Thanks for sharing. Anything else? Okay. And then yes, so of course, like it's really important to talk about mental health in a way that respects like our cultural norms, but at the same time, challenging those harmful myths, right? Those harmful stigmas, those harmful cultural stigmas. So for our ANHPI communities and students, being able to use language that like reduces shame, like I mentioned earlier, can really create that safe space for our community to be able to have discussions like this. So this might even mean like reframing therapy for our community as like as a tool for managing stress or for self-care, rather than saying things like oh you're going to therapy for mental health treatment or mental illness treatment or something like that. So I think like uh this language can really help, or changing like how we even word things or how we say things, I think to our community can help to reduce the shame that's associated with seeking help, and then that way making these services a lot more accessible for our community. So it's also helpful to be able to like discuss mental health in terms of like managing symptoms rather than like labeling mental health as like a disorder, right? Because then when you say even the word disorder, that already feels like it's something that's not in order. It's something wrong, so even that implies like it has like a negative connotation to it, right? So I think to like navigate these cultural stigmas like effectively, we need a plan that includes being able to like educate not only ourselves, being able to engage in dialogues like this, community dialogues like this, and I think like in college, with our college community, this can mean like even starting like a mental health awareness campaign with like the different cultural clubs that are on campus. This can also mean like maybe advocating for more diverse mental health services on campus, or even just simply sharing your own experience with a friend, maybe a trusted friend. You don't want to share with that friend that's gonna go take your business everywhere else, right? So you want to share your experience with like those trusted friends. 'Cause I think it's like those small steps can really help shift things and create a more supportive like environment for our community.
For sure. So
So,
yeah, just to add on in regards to like what Sala's talking about using appropriate language. So for example, if you've noticed, we don't call these classes, we call them community conversations because we wanted it to be a conversation. Another thought, and so when we were teaching, we had the fortunate task of teaching mental health to a group of priests in Pierce County. It was about 20 priests about mental health. So we didn't call it mental health. We called it sacred conversations because we knew that they would understand that. So again, this is why we were talking about it's appropriate in regards to the language.
mhm. That's a good point.
Mhm.
And that was a very fruitful conversation indeed.
That's why we had two of them.
It's a very fruitful conversation, and we're so grateful to have it. And we will keep having these conversations because, as I said, the more that we keep talking about it, the more it really does normalize seeking these services for our community. So things that we don't even talk about regarding mental health, regarding the stigmas around the cultural stigmas around mental health. We want to talk about it. Like, let's talk about it. Let's share your experiences when it comes to cultural stigmas. And trust me, Scarlett and I have no problem sharing ours and being transparent in that way. We have no problem sharing our experiences as well when it comes to cultural stigmas. But this is why we want to keep having these conversations for sure. Anything else? Any comments or like just questions that anybody might have? Good to go. All right. All right, so I want to bring your attention to I want to bring your attention to the resources that are currently available to all of our Green River students that are, on campus. So for example, like just by going through I don't know if you guys are aware of it or not, but the Green River Counseling Center, they do offer personal mental health counseling and support through, I think it's free. Yes, it is free. They do offer virtual and in person as well. So I got this directly off of the Green River website. They also do like their fall drop-in hours right there. But one thing I wanted to really point out about the therapy, the mental health therapy services right here that you have available to you on your kid, to keep in mind that these resources are for short-term counseling, right? They do state that on the website as well. So if you do need like further like long-term like mental health services, I think we have that in our cheat sheet is what I call it. But if not, we can definitely send that out. But I just wanted to point out that these resources are also available for our Green River students that are there. Any questions? Or Lonnie, are you aware of these services? Or if not, then like I just wanted to bring this out to our community.
Yes, so our counseling services is available not just for students, but also staff and faculty. I know we've got a couple of staff and faculty who are joining us today. So if at any point you want to connect with a counselor here at Green River, you're more than welcome to. And I know that Scarlett has shared the event summary. It's a 2-pager, and on the second page it has Scarlett and Sala's like contact information. So if you want to connect with them, especially my Samoan, my Poly sisters here, who are tuning in, if you want to connect with another Samoan or Pacific Islander counselor or therapist, Sala and Scarlett are great people to connect with. So you can find their contact information on the event summary as well. Another resource here on campus too is our Center for Transformational Wellness. They don't provide direct counseling services like our counseling services center provides, but they provide more like community resources as well. So if you're looking for I know it's very meaningful, at least for me, to see that Scarlett and Sala like have someone who shares a Center for Transformational Wellness about what community resources are available and when it comes to like mental health and therapy.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you, Lani. So yeah, this is awesome. I don't know. So if you missed it last week, I used to attend Green River Community College. So I was not aware that they had these services, or maybe I was just like, my mind was not towards mental health, see, lets you know, like all the stigmas that I grew up with as well. But when I was going through Green River website, it was just amazing to see that they offer this free to the students and faculty and staff. So pretty awesome service to have, which I wanted to kind of end with that and bring everyone's attention to those services that they offer there as well. So that's all I have today. I just want to give space for questions or any comments or anything that anybody want to share about today.
Utilize this space for sure because we're here, and like I said, you only get this information unless you see somebody like Sala and I, and typically you have to pay for it. And so, again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. If you want to share, please don't hesitate to share. If you go home today and you say, "Oh man, I have a question. I wish I could have asked it when I saw Scarlett and Sala in the class or in the community conversation," please still send it. Like we will still answer. We get them. And so we just want to encourage you to utilize this space because that's what this space is for, to continue to create these types of conversations to help with ascension in regards to mental health, and not it be stagnant in regards to our community. Because Sal and I, we've been running these, we call this season 3 of our classes. We've been running these since October 2022. Because we love our community and we just want our community to continue to improve in whatever capacity that we can help in. So again, if you have questions, please unmute yourself or put it in the chat, and let's have a conversation about it while we have some time.
Thank you, Scarlett.
You're welcome. Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Oh,
What helped you? Oh, go ahead, Dr. King.
All right, here we go. Thank you so much for facilitating this space. I have more like a question for our A and HPI students, specifically with supporting them better, I think. So what I've noticed unilaterally is, and I tend to do this too, when folks want to offer help, or like, "Are you okay?" It's kind of almost like an impulsive response to be like, "I'm fine, I'm good." Like right. And I think I see that a lot, particularly with women of color. And I think that comes from a lot of like historical trauma too, right? Like it's a lot of the emotional baggage, the familial weight that a lot of women of color carry. So how do we kind of like navigate or encourage students to open up when that's their like default response? Like, because we want to get them to join this space, and I really don't want to be like, "I think you need this," and I really particular language to kind of
like, "Well, what does that mean?" And they were like, "Well, what do you mean I'm good?" I said, "Well, I actually don't know what your good is." So what's your good? What's your fine, so that I understand. That's how it's just little things. And if they say, "Well, I don't really know," it's okay. So when you do know, let me know.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because one of the things that what I end up teaching my clients is how to ask an effective question in regards to not arresting somebody because we're uncomfortable with silence. So it's just like, let me give them some time, because a lot of times silence is correlated. If it's not filled, we're in trouble. And it's just like, no, it's okay to be silent for a couple of minutes. Let them figure it out. And if you don't have it figured out, just let me know when you're ready.
yeah.
Because when I used to work with teens, they were like, "I don't know." I said, "Well, let me know when you're ready. I'll be right here." And they figure it out within less than 2 minutes. They do, because they're not given the space to think about it. We're not a lot of times given space to think, to come up with an answer. So what would you
Talking about, like, you have to just give them that space to be able to do that. But one of the things I always like to do is like, well, I notice this, right? I notice that. So whether it's something that like that like your friend is like maybe hasn't been going to classes or things like that, instead of like kind of like, you need to go to therapy because you're like this, and just be like, just to let you know that I'm here. So sometimes like just kind of like saying what you notice about your friend or whoever it is. So stating that, so I notice, and then you explain whatever. And then also like going back to what Scar said, so I notice, you say whatever, just, and then letting them know that you're going to be there. Because really in reality, you can't make anybody do anything, no matter how much you think they need to go to therapy, how much and believe they need to go to therapy. There's no way, like, we cannot make anybody go to therapy. And we've had people ask, it's like, especially people that like work in the social services setting, right? When they can clearly see that their clients need to go to therapy. So then they're asking us, well, how can I get them to you? How can I make them come? Like, you can't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All you can do is give them the information.
Yeah.
You give them the information, let them know that, that you're going to be there, that you're going to be there. Like when they're ready, you're going to be there. So it's like
Yeah.
maybe even sharing like, I noticed this, and then just taking that pause, let them respond. And if they don't, that's okay. Now you can let them know that you're
Back now. I am not a stickler on time. So if they come back to me a year later, cool.
yeah.
At least they're coming back. So
Yeah.
it's just because the only thing that we ever want to do is just plant a seed. That's
Yeah.
it. That's all we ever want to do is just to plant a seed so that they know they a week, a day, a month, years, and they will be like, hey, I remember you did this. Do you still have those resources? I said, I do. And I have more. And so I said, well, how much do you want? So yeah, just really talking about is giving with what's going on.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Got a couple more minutes. Any other last questions, comments? And then Dr. King, if students send you questions, let us know about yeah, send it to us.
Yeah. We can address it in one of
Yeah.
that can be one of the things we can, if they send any questions after any of the conversations that we have, we can address it like, after the next conversation. So if there's questions from last week, we can address it during this time as well.
Actually, can I relay boundaries, like how to create healthy boundaries? And I think like our students are also curious about codependency. And I know that you mentioned before there's like a lot of misinformation about there. So I think those two particular things, I think our students would find really invaluable.
For sure. So come to our boundaries class.
Oh, that's right.
We
Yeah.
have a boundaries
Yeah, I couldn't
class.
remember if that was part of our
Yeah.
series for
No, you're
is it
right.
part- oh,
Okay.
yay, that's
Yeah,
coming
we
up.
are. Yeah, so we have a boundaries
Yeah.
class where we delve into, because it's not about, here's where the standpoint I come from. It's not about setting the boundaries. It's what's the reason you have a challenge doing it. Because if we don't work on the root of why, if we don't work on that root of it, it'll just keep happening over and over again and you won't change it. So we have to discover the reason. Man, what's the reason I keep not setting this boundary? So we have to dig under all of that, and then what I call is re-soil, put new soil down. So yeah, come to our boundaries class and we'll talk more and more about that, and we get into that just to, with our given time. So yeah, tell them to come, or watch the replay if needed. I did want to read a comment. Somebody had said, as I noticed in the image of the Samoan Fale, had spirituality as number one. Another option to open for space to communicate can be to reach out to spiritual leaders. Can be challenging at first, especially with the elders, but it's a start. Oh, we have continued to do that. Our elders are fun. They are fun to talk with. And when I say it's a lot of what we talked about before. We mentioned it last week. Is they define all those things for sure. So, but great comment. Thanks for sharing that, Martha, because it is true. And we work with our pastoral leaders too. That was fun. Those were two fun conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did. And these conversations strategically because we know and understand our cultures and our communities.
Absolutely.
We know that with our specific culture, for anything to filter through to the community, it's more effective when it's coming through to your spiritual leaders. So that's where we went to start with. Right. So more on the boundary, and then I'll give it to you, Dr. King, or Lonnie, to finish. But any therapist can teach a class or have a conversation on boundaries. One thing I think someone mentioned it, was it this one or the last conversation, how boundaries is not it is not a a concept that is familiar in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Western thing, right? So what is the difference between any therapist having a conversation on boundaries and us having a conversation on boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
We bring in the cultural piece
Yep.
of that. We're not trying to do away with our culture. And you'll see just how Scarlett be able to is going to talk about boundaries. Like she integrates the culture piece in there as well, and it's really a really different conversation because
Mm-hmm.
even as therapists, we are taught to be mindful, and this is like every therapist, like we're taught to be mindful of when talking about boundaries with clients that are from different ethnic backgrounds,
Yeah.
because it is not something
Something
that
so.
is, open, like a concept that we're familiar with in our culture. In a Samoan culture, ain't no such thing as boundaries. It's like, nope, there is no such thing as boundaries. This is why you could be like 30, 40 years old, and your mama will still have you go up there and do your memory verse for like White Sunday or something. Okay. There's no such thing as
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. There's no such thing. Okay. So, but when we have that conversation, with about cultural boundaries and how we integrate that piece, we are very mindful of our culture. And so I think that's a huge difference in why our conversation is significant around boundaries.
Awesome. All right, Lee, you can close us out.
All right, man, this is such great stuff. I can't wait to share with my dad because my dad actually is going to therapy now, and like really opening up more. And I've seen like my relationship with him change. So I took pictures of the fale so I can share with him. But anyway, I wanted to just thank everyone for tuning in, for participating in today's session, navigating cultural stigmas in mental health. Want to give a special thanks and chihu to our experts and hosts, Sala and Scarlett, for their time and just sharing more on today's topic. This is episode 2 of our 8-part series, so join us next Thursday, October 17th from 12 to 1:30 p.m., where we'll discuss Knowing Your Feelings, hosted by GRC's Pono program. I'm going to drop in the chat for folks who are tuning in online our post-event survey. Please fill it out. For folks who are tuning in person in our student union, there's physical copies available as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you'd like to hear from us in the future, or questions that you may have that Scarlett and Sala can focus on at the end of next week's session. So thank you again to all of our sponsors, our collaborators. What I'll also drop in the chat too is just the event summary again that Scarlett shared, as well as our class descriptions for next week and then the rest of our series. So thank you, everyone. Bye.